Ladies and gentlemen, it's SummerSlam!
Ladies and gentlemen, we are here. The Alpha, the creme de la creme, the Golden Goose. One of the best SummerSlams in the history of the WWE, and some might say it's the best. I want you to discuss this down below in the comments. Do you believe 2002 was the best year for SummerSlam? I will say this though, SummerSlam 2002 is my favorite. This show was so good. I watched this show every single year. So of course, I'm gonna have a very biased perspective on it. With that said though, it's kind of hard not to like the show even when you're unbiased. Think about this for a minute. Of the 18 wrestlers on this card, out of all 18, 15 of them were either world champions or would become world champions. Big card, stacked from top to bottom. This was the year WWF lost their rights to the name WWF and became WWE. And this was the start of the brand split. Now, when it first started, Ric Flair was in charge of Raw and Vince was in charge of SmackDown. I think Ric Flair gave up his duty as head of Raw, and as a result, Vince McMahon got full control over both brands. And then he brought in general managers. For SmackDown, it was Stephanie McMahon. And for Raw, it was Eric Bischoff. Yeah. Wasn't that a shocker? I remember that day. I was surprised. The enemy of all enemies to the WWE. Yo, that's crazy. But we also had a couple of changes to that main event scene. Brock Lesnar debuted and was running amok. He won the King of the Ring, was undefeated, ran through everybody. Everybody. But we also lost Stone Cold Steve Austin. Now, the story for Stone Cold Steve Austin, and I might get my facts wrong here, but essentially, he was supposed to do a random match against Brock Lesnar, and he refused to do it because it had no hype, it had no build, and he refused to just lose randomly to Brock Lesnar. So he took his ball and went home. Long story short, I agree with Austin's thinking. I understand where he's coming from. I do think he should have handled it better. I think him walking out was... And he did talk about how he was tired, he was hurt, he just needed a break and all that kind of stuff. So maybe it was for the best. And the sad thing about this is, Austin would eventually retire as soon as he got back from this hiatus. But even without Austin, this show was incredible. Easily one of the best SummerSlams of all time. Couple of details before we get into the actual show. 2 hours and 40 minutes. The date, August 25th, 2002. Nassau Coliseum. Is that Long Island, New York, or Uniondale? I'm going to assume that's Uniondale. Attendance, 14,797. Commentary for Raw was Jim Ross and Jerry the King Lawler. For SmackDown, it was Michael Cole and Taz. We kicked things off with a classic. Right off the bat, we got one of the best matches in SummerSlam history. Kurt Angle versus Rey Mysterio. Oh my goodness. From the moment the bell rung, they were hitting it hard. Fast-paced, innovative moves, crazy action. There wasn't a slow moment in this match. This was one of those 5-10 minute matches that you wish would have went longer. By the time it was over, I was like, oh, come on. I want more. But it's no wonder these two had one of the best feuds in 2002. These matches that Angle and Rey Mysterio had need to be talked about a lot more. They were off the charts amazing. And this one might be their best one. Amazing opener. Crowd was hot for it. That crowd, by the way, was mwah. Love the crowd we had. I miss crowds like this too. People who actually cared about what they got and actually spent their money to go to the arenas to actually have a good time. Lord. Kurt Angle wins against Rey Mysterio. We follow that up with Chris Jericho versus Woo! The Nature Boy Ric Flair. During this time, Chris Jericho was a heel. Yeah, I think like around Survivor Series, like immediately afterwards, if anything else, he turned heel. And he's been a heel since. He had that very forgettable match against Triple H at WrestleMania 18. And yeah, he's just been doing his thing. I think he formed Fozzy around this time. Not quite sure what alignment Ric Flair was. But in this match, he was the de facto babyface, I suppose. But yeah, Ric Flair had a pretty solid match against Chris Jericho. He was 52 years old. 52, wrestling like he was in his 30s. Now, he was a little sluggish. I do feel like 2002 wasn't the greatest year for Flair. But even then, he still looked really good for a 52-year-old wrestling. And he would only get better. I feel like 2003 and 2004 were better than 2002. He didn't start to show his age until like, what, 59? Which is ridiculous. Wrestling when you're 59, yeah. It's about time you called it a day. But Flair's a gem, man. Flair beat Chris Jericho in this really good match. And then we follow that with Eddie Guerrero, Latino Heat, taking on Edge. Now, 2002 was a great year for Edge. In terms of in-ring action, those were some of his best matches. And of course, you throw Eddie Guerrero in the mix, you're going to have a good match. And this was a good match. Of course, their best match was that no DQ match on SmackDown, which, if you haven't seen it, go out of your way to watch it. It is a classic. Still, really good match. Of course it would be. It's Eddie Guerrero and Edge. And I'm not just saying that because it's two Hall of Famers. No, these two went in there and tore it down. Now, following that was a WWE Tag Team Championship match, which involved two tag teams that, let's just get to it. We got Booker T and Goldust, my personal favorite odd couple tag team. You have these odd couple teams, you know, Team Hell No, which is Bryan and Kane. You had X-Pac and Kane. And there are many others that I can come up with. Santino Marella and Beth Phoenix. This one was my favorite. There was something about Booker T and Goldust that was so out of this world. Every segment they did was just, by far, one of the best parts of Raw. And if we ever do a top 10 list of odd couple tag teams, this will be number one for me. The other team was, now this one might be controversial, a team called the Un-Americans. Christian and Lance Storm, who basically were exactly what the name is. People who hated America. They carried an upside-down flag, and there were times they tried to burn the flag. They literally tried to burn the American flag on TV. Now, this was during that angle where Test couldn't be fired for a year. So he purposely tried to do stuff that he knew would piss people off. And the fact that he tried to burn the American flag, I don't know if that would stand nowadays. I'm surprised Raw didn't get kicked off of Spike TV when they did that, but 2002 for you. The Un-Americans retained their tag team titles. And then we go into what I thought was a great match for the Intercontinental Championship. Chris Benoit, who was a heel champion, and he just returned from injury, taking on Rob Van Dam. And this goes without saying, Rob Van Dam, at this time especially, was one of the best wrestlers in the world. He could have a good match with anything. Not anybody, but anything. Ric Flair coined the phrase, I think Shawn Michaels could have a match with a broomstick and make it a classic. Well, Rob Van Dam should be put in that conversation as well. Rob Van Dam could have a classic with anything. Now, this was a great match with Chris Benoit, as you would expect. Was this a cross-brand match? Because Chris Benoit was on SmackDown, and Rob Van Dam was on Raw. Yeah, this was a cross-brand match. So this was a match to determine whether the IC Championship would go to Raw or SmackDown. And as you guys know, Raw gets the IC title. So Rob Van Dam does win this match, becomes your new Intercontinental Champion. The weakest match on the card was Test versus Undertaker. It wasn't a bad match. It was just decent. By the books. Taker wins. I think Taker just came off of a weird heel turn. He turned heel, again, around the time the Invasion angle ended. Because they needed strong heels to carry the heel side. So they turned Chris Jericho heel, which needed to happen. Taker turning heel, I don't know how I felt about that. I don't think I liked it. It's very forgettable. It's kind of like Austin turning heel. It's like, why would you turn him heel, though? What? You know, anyways, it doesn't really matter because it was short. He eventually went back to being a babyface and was all about America. And he beat Test. And then we get what I consider to be the greatest match in SummerSlam history. Unsanctioned street fight. After 4 years of being on the injury list. Being told he will never, ever wrestle again. HBK Shawn Michaels made his return in a match that I believe was better than it had every right to be. No one thought this guy would be as good as he was back in the day. Holy crap. If you haven't seen this match, what are you doing with your life? So the story of Shawn Michaels and Triple H goes like this. Michaels returned some time ago as part of the NWO. We're not going to talk about that. But they tried to reform DX on Raw. On the night they came out as DX, Triple H pedigree Shawn because he wanted to send the message that Shawn is weak. Because you know how Triple H is. It's all about the game and how you play it. In other words, it's all about him. He's the show. He's the man. He wanted Shawn Michaels to be his manager to make him the guy. As his manager, by his side, he would be unstoppable. Now, this storyline would eventually lead to Ric Flair being his manager, which would lead to Evolution. But this was the first steps to it. They even did this whole angle where someone attacked Shawn Michaels backstage. Who done it? Who attacked Shawn Michaels backstage? And we kind of already knew, but it was nice seeing it play out. It turned out to be Triple H who attacked Shawn Michaels backstage, which led to that amazing promo on Raw where Shawn shocked the world and challenged Triple H to a fight, not a match, but a fight at SummerSlam. And here we are. The stuff they did in this match, insane. If you're a new wrestler coming into the business, and you're looking for a match to study, a match to basically base your career off of, a match to aim for, this is it. This is one of those matches. Shawn Michaels and Triple H, Unsanctioned Street Fight. Now, Shawn Michaels does win. Unfortunately, he doesn't walk out. Because as soon as he won the match, Triple H attacked him with a sledgehammer. So yeah, Michaels won the battle, but Triple H won the war. No one thought he would wrestle again anyways. No one thought Michaels was coming back after this match. Oh, but he does, brother. Matter of fact, he comes back and has another full 8-year run. And I think, in my opinion, his second run is better than his first run. That's just my opinion. The main event was the Undisputed Championship. The Rock taking on Brock Lesnar. Now, I like this match for the very reason that both men switched alignments during the match. Because going in, Rock was the babyface and Lesnar was the heel. And by the end of it, Rock was the heel and Lesnar was the babyface. And I like how they gradually changed alignments. Because by this point, the crowd was sick of The Rock. They were tired of the stick. He was going away, coming back, going away, coming back. And they were just sick of him not doing the wrestling gig anymore. And so naturally, they grew to hate him. But what I love about this is that The Rock was smart enough and cool enough to play to it. He didn't care. The fans wanted to boo him? Okay, I'll be a heel. And that's why I love The Rock. He wasn't scared to be a villain. He wasn't scared to give the crowd what they wanted. You want to boo me? All right, boo me. Let me give you reasons to boo me. And he put over Lesnar. He did the right thing. You know what Austin didn't want to do? Rock came back and did it. Gladly. And you know what? I respect him for that. The Rock had a fantastic match with Lesnar. Definitely one of Lesnar's best matches at SummerSlam. Is it his best match? Oh, brother, that's coming. It ain't this match. But one of his best matches, absolutely. I don't think he's had one bad SummerSlam match. Yet. I say that now, knowing what's happening at SummerSlam 2018. Oh boy. Again, it is my favorite SummerSlam of all time. But is it the greatest? That is the question I ask you guys in the comments. Tell me down below, do you believe SummerSlam 2002 is the greatest SummerSlam in history. Do you disagree? If you do, tell me what SummerSlam you believe is the greatest. If you agree, tell me why. But thank you for watching. Next year, 2003, don't remember much about 2003, but look forward to watching it. Thank you for watching this review, though. This is your boy, Deluxe Man, signing off right here in Deluxe Man's World. Peace.